Did you know that Moldova, a European country, suffered a severe economic downturn after the collapse of the USSR? In 1991, when the USSR disintegrated, it sent shockwaves around the globe. Nowhere was this more keenly felt than in Moldova, a small landlocked country nestled between Romania and Ukraine. Once considered the orchard of the Soviet Union for its productive agricultural sector, Moldova found itself grappling with the harsh realities of transitioning to a market economy. The Soviet Union had been a dominating force with its centralized planning and control over the economy. Its collapse left Moldova bereft of the support it had previously relied upon. In the wake of the USSR's dissolution, the country was thrust into a new world order, one that required rapid adaptation to free market principles. Moldova, however, was ill-equipped to deal with such a seismic shift. The country's infrastructure, its industries, and indeed its entire economic system had been tailored to fit the Soviet model. This model was now obsolete, creating a plethora of problems for Moldova's fledgling market economy. The situation was further exacerbated by a lack of foreign investment and the country's inherent economic limitations. The result? A precipitous drop in Moldova's per capita gross domestic product. By the dawn of the 21st century, it had plummeted to a meager $400, a stark testament to the country's economic woes. Yet, this was only the beginning of Moldova's struggle. The country, still reeling from the aftermath of the USSR's collapse, found itself mired in financial scandals that would only deepen its economic crisis. But that's a story for another scene. The transition to a market economy proved more challenging for Moldova than expected, plunging the country into decades of economic hardship. As we delve deeper into Moldova's economic journey, remember this: the collapse of the USSR was just the starting point of a long and arduous road for this European country. The trials and tribulations that followed would test the resilience of its people and shape the nation's future in ways no one could have predicted. In 2014, Moldova was hit by a scandal that shook the nation's already fragile economy. It was a year that would go down in infamy as the year when $1 billion mysteriously vanished from 3 of Moldova's banks. To put things into perspective, this was equivalent to an eighth of the country's entire economy, a staggering amount for a nation already battling economic hardships. The scandal unfolded like a plot straight out of a thriller movie. Over a span of just a few days, a series of loans were approved in November 2014, which then vanished without a trace. The banks involved were Unibank, Banca de Economie, and Banca Socială, and the sheer magnitude of the fraud left the country's financial sector reeling. This scandal wasn't merely a theft of money, but a theft of trust. It exposed a deep-rooted corruption in the country's financial system, eroding the public's faith in their institutions. The citizens of Moldova, who were already grappling with the aftermath of the USSR's collapse and the economic downturn that followed, were left to bear the brunt of this financial catastrophe. The billion-dollar scandal had a ripple effect, exacerbating the economic situation in Moldova. It further increased the country's debts, forcing the government to resort to drastic measures such as raising taxes and cutting public spending. These measures, while necessary, further strained the lives of the average Moldovan citizen, pushing many into poverty. This scandal served as a wake-up call for the nation. It led to widespread protests, with citizens demanding accountability and transparency in the financial sector. It also brought international attention to the level of corruption in Moldova, putting pressure on the government to implement reforms. Yet, despite the outcry and the international pressure, the stolen money was never recovered and the perpetrators were never brought to justice. This has left a bitter taste in the mouths of Moldovans and a lasting impact on the country's economy. The billion-dollar scandal, a significant blow to Moldova's economy, left the country and its citizens in a state of shock and despair. The billion-dollar scandal had far-reaching effects, pushing Moldova further into economic distress. Imagine, if you will, the shockwave that this financial debacle sent through the nation. An amount equivalent to an eighth of the country's entire economy vanished into thin air. The aftermath was predictably catastrophic. The country was pushed onto the brink of economic collapse and the population was left to grapple with the consequences. To this day, Moldova is still shouldering the burden of these debts. Picture a weight, a heavy and unyielding load, that the population will carry until the year 2039. That is a span of 25 years from the time of the scandal. A quarter of a century of burden born out of a singular moment of financial malfeasance. Yet, amidst these dark circumstances, the government of Moldova has been making strides to stabilize the economy. They've been navigating a path filled with challenges, each step a delicate balance between addressing immediate needs and planning for long-term recovery. The government has initiated a series of reforms aimed at strengthening the financial sector. These measures include improving the regulatory framework, enhancing transparency, and fostering a culture of corporate responsibility. However, the progress has been slow, hampered by a lack of resources and the enormity of the task at hand. In addition to these internal efforts, Moldova has also sought assistance from the international community. It has entered into agreements with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, securing loans aimed at bolstering the economy and implementing necessary reforms. However, these measures are not without their own set of hurdles. The conditions attached to these loans often require stringent austerity measures, which can exacerbate poverty and inequality in the short term. This puts the government in a precarious position, caught between the urgent need for financial aid and the potential social implications of these conditions. The repercussions of the scandal continue to affect Moldova, making the path to economic recovery long and arduous. Yet the story of Moldova is not just one of despair but also of resilience, of a country striving to rise from the ashes of a scandal that has marked its history. Today, Moldova remains the poorest country in Europe, with economic failures affecting the standard of living. As we delve into the present economic situation, it's clear that the country's financial woes are far from over. The aftermath of the billion-dollar scandal and the subsequent debt continue to weigh heavily on the nation, with the populace bearing the brunt of the burden. The average Moldovan citizen struggles to make ends meet as the per capita GDP lingers around an alarming $400. This low income, coupled with high inflation rates, makes it a Herculean task for many to afford even the basic necessities. The shadow of poverty is a constant specter, with over a quarter of the population living below the poverty line. The challenges are not just individual but also systemic. The government, despite its best efforts, grapples with a high unemployment rate, which currently hovers around the double-digit mark. This lack of jobs not only exacerbates the poverty situation but also forces many young Moldovans to seek opportunities abroad, resulting in a significant brain drain. But it's not all doom and gloom. The government has been taking strides to improve the situation. Efforts towards economic reforms, including the implementation of anti-corruption measures and the promotion of foreign investments, are underway. The European Union too has shown its support, providing financial aid and opening up its market to Moldovan goods, offering a glimmer of hope in these trying times. It's important to note, however, that these efforts are not overnight solutions. The road to economic stability and growth is long and fraught with challenges. The government must remain committed to its reform agenda and the people resilient in their pursuit of better living conditions. Despite the ongoing struggles, Moldova continues to strive for economic stability and growth. The journey may be hard, the path steep, but the nation's spirit remains unbroken. As we move toward the future, one can only hope that this resilience will see Moldova rise from its economic ashes. As we look to the future, we ask, is there a chance for Moldova to break out of this vicious cycle, or is the economic future of this country bleak? Moldova's economic future is indeed a daunting topic. However, it is not a hopeless one. Potential solutions and steps for economic recovery are visible on the horizon. They range from international aid and investment to government reforms and the untapped potential of Moldova's agricultural sector. International aid and investment play a huge part in the recovery process. Moldova has been receiving aid from various institutions such as the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. These funds, if managed wisely, can help in the reconstruction and stabilization of the economy. Additionally, foreign direct investment, although currently low, can be encouraged through the creation of a more conducive and transparent business environment. On the home front, government reforms are crucial. Strengthening the rule of law, enhancing transparency, and combating corruption are key steps towards economic revival. The government needs to work tirelessly to restore public trust, ensure accountability, and foster an environment conducive to business and economic growth. Let's not forget about Moldova's agricultural sector. It's a significant part of the country's economy, providing employment for a large portion of the population. Moldova's fertile soils and favorable climate make it an ideal place for agriculture. With the right investments and technological advancements, this sector could become a major driver of economic growth. The wine industry in particular holds great potential. Moldova has been producing wine for thousands of years and is known for its high-quality grapes. Enhancing wine production and export can bring in substantial revenue, contributing significantly to the economy. While the road to economic recovery may be long and challenging, with concerted efforts and strategic plans, there's always hope for a brighter future for Moldova. The path is not easy, but with resilience, determination, and the right strategies, Moldova has the potential to break out of this vicious cycle and improve its economic standing.